Ready? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We're up. I
I'd
don't know
like-
if you were setting this up or not.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
We're good.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the November 30th budget, 9 a.m. budget hearing for the Delaware County Board of Commissioners, and we have before us our engineer, Chris Bauserman, and our deputy engineer, Rob Riley. And I will turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Good morning, and thank you for your time and your interest in our budget. We have a presentation prepared for you today to go through the budget in general, and as you can imagine, there's a lot more below the surface of what we can talk about in the time that's presented. So any questions you have that go deeper than what you see before you, please ask, and feel free to ask as we go along. I want to just start by saying how much we appreciate the support of your board. We spend a lot of money in Delaware County on transportation, and I think we probably spend more per capita than most, if not all, the counties in the state. But I think that's reflective of the fact that we have growth that's more aggressive than most places in the state, and the challenges that come with those are expensive, and they get more expensive all the time based on inflation and construction inflation. And so our budget is reflective of that. So today we'll go through the general budget and talk to you about some specific projects that are big dollar items for us in the year ahead. So Rob took the lead on preparing the budget and the presentation, so I've asked him to take us through that presentation this morning, and we'll be glad to field and answer any questions or have any discussion that you'd like as we go.
Okay, well, as Chris said, thank you for the time this morning, and again, thank you for your support, because we couldn't do the things that we do really without your board support. And as engineers, Chris and I often talk, I mean, this is a really neat place to be, Delaware County. We get to do a lot of projects that most other county engineers' offices just don't get to do, and that's pretty neat. We get to build stuff, that's what we like doing, and this is where it needs done. So I've got a lot of detail in this presentation. I'll start, this is kind of how we'd like to run through this. Start first talking about revenues, then expenses, staffing, and then we'll give you a capital project overlay, talking specifically about some of our projects. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the tables, but there's a few I want to spend a little bit of time on. But really, this presentation is available for your reference if you do have questions or thoughts later that you want to look at. This hopefully provides the level of detail that you're looking for. I want to first start talking about our operation and maintenance revenue. This is our Fund 292. This fund is primarily funded by the state gas tax and license plate fees. Both of those sources are relatively flat. The gas tax is we're projecting less than 1% growth. The license plate fees do go up with population, and so as our population grows, more registered vehicles in the county, we do see growth there, so we're projecting about a 2% increase there. We do provide a number of services for townships. We also do inspection and review plans for development. We charge for all those services, and so that fund, or that money, comes into Fund 292. And then we also issue permits for things like hauling permits, driveway permits, work in the right of way to cover the administrative cost.
Hey,
So,
Rob, let me ask you a
Sure,
question right there.
sure.
You know, everyone's experiencing inflation, whether it's construction costs or wage costs, et cetera. Have you reviewed the amounts, the rates you charge for all those services to adjust those for, your increased costs?
Yes, so Chris and I have talked recently I think we do need to take a look at our plan review fees and our construction inspection fees. It's been some time since we've adjusted those. The goal is to capture our actual costs. We're not trying to make a profit on those things. We want to make sure that we're actually meeting our costs, and so it's very likely we will have to address that in the near future.
Okay.
But Commissioner, that's a topic we'll have to address very, very soon.
Yeah, we're kind of asking that question across the board, because again, you're not alone, we're not alone. Everyone, it seems like everyone's costs are going up, and, you know, our goal is to pass those along, not, like you said, not to make a profit off it, but to be, you know, neutral.
Yep.
So I appreciate that.
Also, just point out that the customer side of that are feeling a lot of pressure from a lot of different directions, and doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but
Yeah.
just an acknowledgement that there'll be some wringing of the hands over that from those that are paying the fees.
Yep.
So,
I understand.
we try to be sensitive to that, but at the same time cover our costs.
So, bottom line, we're projecting about $12 million in revenue through all those different sources, and that basically funds our operation. I'll call your attention to the graph at the bottom, or the chart. You'll see that I went back to 2015, looking at our fund balance, and at that time we were carrying a pretty good balance, around $33 million. That was shortly before the Sawmill Parkway bonds were issued. Since that time, since Sawmill Parkway was basically funded out of those bond proceeds, we have been able to shift our 292 funding towards capital projects. And so since 2016 up through this year, we've been spending somewhere on the order of $4 to $5 million per year out of this fund to kind of supplement the Road and Bridge General Fund account. And so you've seen that balance draw down. We're projecting about $8.5 million at the end of this year. As we move forward, I'll talk a little bit more about this. We don't necessarily think that's sustainable, because you can see what that trend would lead to if not, if we keep up the current pattern. So what we'll be talking to you about is we will really need to start shifting some of those expenses, really all of those capital expenses, back to the Road and Bridge Fund. But also we do have some TIF funds that are going to be able to assist with those capital outlays. So in terms of where we'd like to be, I think Chris and I have talked a little bit about this. We want to have a cash reserve in this fund for operations in case things come along, major maintenance items. We think that somewhere around 6 months worth of revenue would be a good thing to kind of hold at that level. That would be roughly $6 to $7 million in the future. And so beyond this year, you can see we think we can start to level off at that $6 million figure and sustain that. So any questions on any of that?
I just reiterate Commissioner Benton's point that I think we do need to look at increases for the reasons you just gave.
Yep.
So.
So I'll shift to talking about revenues for capital projects. Basically three main sources. The Road and Bridge General Fund account, that is basically 3/4 of the 0.5% county sales tax is set aside for road and bridge construction. That generates, or is currently generating, about $25 million per year. And so that is really the largest source of our capital funding. But we also do get federal and state grants. We track the federal grants in Fund 294 and the state grants in 409. You can see a quick summary of the projects that we anticipate next year will get those grant funds. And so about $3 million of federal revenue and $800,000 for state revenue. I mentioned TIF funding, working with Karen on getting an updated TIF revenue estimate for all of these TIF funds. Your board has had the foresight to create these TIFs over the last several years. Slate Ridge, Evans Farm, Orange Road, Creekside, those are all generating money now, which can be used for infrastructure, both water, or excuse me, sewer and roads. And so coordinating with Tiffany Mag and her office on trying to make use of those TIF funds. But this is a good thing. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have to shift away from using the operation and maintenance fund to pay for capital. This helps backfill that, having the TIF funds available. So here's just a summary of what our revenue picture looks like. You can see the sales tax. I had it at 23. It's actually about 25 million. So the sales tax is the vast majority of our revenue for our office for the program we have. Kind of that top right quarter is essentially our kind of ongoing operation and maintenance budget. So any questions on that?
I think it's interesting the license tax has grown to $7 million. I know we changed that a few years ago, and,
Yes.
and with the regular population growth, that's turned into a good funding source, a good
Yes,
sized
yes.
dollar funding source.
So I'll move over to the expense side. This is a summary, again, of our operation and maintenance expenses. This is basically our staff salaries, kind of the stuff keeping the lights on in the office, doing routine road maintenance, plowing, mowing, minor repairs, but also equipment purchases, maintaining our fleet. So you can see we are requesting an increase in compensation of about 4% to next year. Materials and supplies, those are things like road salt, gravel, sand, salt, or I said salt, concrete, asphalt, the things we use for our own crews to do work. Services and charges kind of has a pretty broad, is a broad category, but generally it's maintenance type services for roads when we hire a contractor to do routine repairs. These aren't capital projects necessarily, but minor repairs, curbs, those types of things. So that's up about 4%, and that's reflective of inflation and additional costs. Capital outlays, this is what I just spoke to. We've reduced that down. That the remaining $1 million in there is basically our fleet expenses, as well as some relatively small expenses for small bridges, culverts, things that we do capitalize. But that's down 78% from our request last year. So bottom line, looking at $13.5 million for this year. So that's a significant reduction from last year. Capital outlays, this is a summary. I won't go through this line by line, but you can see bottom line about $22.6 million. This is out of the Road and Bridge General Fund account, the sales tax fund. So just summarizing what all goes into that. Any questions on any of that?
Are we gonna go through the specific projects later?
Yes,
Right?
yes,
That's
absolutely.
fine. I'll wait then.
So here's, again, another chart showing kind of a summary of the expense side. You can see that the capital outlays is almost half, 44% of our total budget. Compensation and benefits is only about 20% of our total budget. So from a staff side, that's a relatively small part of our budget. I would note that debt service, the debt service on the Sawmill Parkway bonds that were issued in 2015 is about $2.9 million next year. That shows up as a cash transfer, not in the debt service, because we send that to another fund to be paid out of that fund. And then the road improvement program, our annual resurfacing program, shows up as a services and charges because it's not capitalized. We're simply preserving the life of our pavements. That's why that's not shown under capital outlays. It's a 5,300 level expense for accounting purposes. Talk a little bit about our operation and maintenance, staffing, some of the highlights of what we do. Here's a chart showing kind of what our staff count has looked like over the last 15 years. You can see that we've been down, we've been up, and we're right pretty much back to where we were 15 years ago in terms of total employees. The makeup of our employment is a little different. We have a couple more technicians and engineers than we did 15 years ago. And that's responding to the number of projects we have for managing and designing those projects. But again, we're asking for a 4% average wage increase for our employees. We will have 3 new hires next year. We've budgeted for 3 new, and that's all included in that 4% overall figure versus last year. We will need to replace 1 highway department employee, and then we have 1 employee who's currently under a temporary contract employee, if you will, moving to full-time.
And the budget reflects the 2 in the third quarter, so it
Yes.
reflects third and fourth quarter, not the full year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
How many vacancies do you have now? I know everyone's struggling with getting to full staff.
Just recently, I mean, if you look at 2019, we were at 76 employees. So we've probably got 3 vacancies. It's a little hard because the makeup of our staff has changed. We have we have fewer highway workers, highway staff. So there's the reality. I'll let you chime in, Chris, if you want, but I think our engineering and professional staff is stretched pretty thin. We have a lot of projects. We basically only have 3 project managers that are managing about 25 contracts, which is a lot. I mean, they stay busy every day. So we could use a little bit more help on the engineering and technical side. I think we're in fairly good shape in terms of the maintenance staff, but we certainly want to keep the staff that we've got. So anything to add to that, Chris?
Just there's been a good bit of turnover at the maintenance level of employees. We reflect that years ago, people we hired into the highway department became lifetime employees, and the trend in the last 5 to 10 years has been just a lot of
Turnover.
here for a year or two and move on to the next job. And so, and it has been a challenge attracting people to those jobs, and we get much less volume of applicants when there is an opening, and where we used to be able to hire people with a certain level of experience, we're now hiring people and training them to get their commercial driver's license or other kind of training. So a lot's changed in the highway department in terms of that makeup. I do think we're playing defense on the professional side. Our project managers, our professional engineers. There's a lot of demand for those folks in the market, and so Rob and I continue to be concerned and trying to shore up the good people that we have in those jobs and be able to keep them here. It's hard to replace those.
Yep. Okay. Your experience isn't inconsistent.
Yeah,
We're in
I'm
it.
sure we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
Yep. So this table is just a highlight of some of this is not an exhaustive, complete list, but this is kind of some of the big ticket things that we pay for kind of our ongoing operation and maintenance. We do a lot of vehicle maintenance and repairs with our own crews. This is buying parts, $168,000. We have a pretty large fleet, so we use a lot of gas and diesel fuel running our dump trucks and pickup trucks around the county. So that's about $380,000. It's actually down last year. Most of that is coming out of the vehicle maintenance and repair side, because I think our fleet's in a little bit better shape than it was. It's continued to get better. We're spending less on repairing our old vehicles than we used to. Asphalt, sand, gravel, all the things we use to maintain and build roads is up just a little bit, 2.88% versus last year. Traffic signals, this is up significantly versus last year. We have taken on new traffic signals. We're taking on new street lights at roundabouts. We now have, I don't even know what the count is now. It's over 40 traffic signals that we maintain at our office across the county, which is probably more than just a few other counties in the state. Generally speaking, the urbanized areas, as you go around the state, generally speaking, cities are the ones that have traffic signals. Most county engineers don't maintain traffic signals, with the exception of maybe Franklin County and some of the urban and suburban counties. So we're a little bit unique in that situation with from our peers. So that will continue to increase as we have to buy more materials to replace traffic signal components and so forth.
Rob, you said taken on. Does that mean those are taken on because it's our responsibility, or taken on because we're taking away from the cities or whatever?
We are not taking signals away from the city.
Okay.
We're adding them. So basically the projects that we're doing, for instance, East Powell Road, we added 3 brand new traffic signals on Old State Road. I think we added 4 signals 4 years ago.
But we're not taking responsibility for those in the city that
That's
take.
correct.
Okay,
That's
just
correct.
your terminology, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. But as we're seeing more traffic on our main arterials, we basically have a choice of how to handle those intersections, and in many cases they end up being roundabouts, which are great because you don't have a traffic signal, but you do typically have street lights. It's design guidance and best practices to have street lights at roundabouts. So you kind of trade the fact that you have lights to maintain instead of a traffic signal, which we prefer, because if one street light goes out, it's okay. If a traffic signal goes out, that's not good. Road salt, we spent a lot of money on road salt, $852,000. That is up since last year. That's simply because we'll be buying more salt. We used a little bit more salt than we thought, not more than we thought. We used more salt last winter, and so we'll have to replace that going into next year. The price is actually down just a little bit this year versus last year, so that's a good thing. We do have seasonal employees that we hire during the summer to do flagging and help our road crews. That's about $228,000, just up a little bit since last year. We have roadside mowing contracts. Those contracts cover about 70% of our road mileage. It used to be years ago that we had a much larger staff dedicated to roadside mowing during the summer. We've found it's frankly just more economical to contract for most of that, the rural roadside mowing. That frees up our remaining crew to do some of the urban mowing, the curb and gutter streets, primarily in the southern half of the county. We can focus on those while the contractor mows the rest of the county. And then miscellaneous stuff, it's hard to categorize all this stuff, but things like road repairs, weed spraying, tree removal, miscellaneous stuff, $634,000. It's down a little bit since last year.
I do have a question, a big question. Not really. But what do you do about yard signs in roundabouts? I think you had issued some instructions to candidates around election time, but then, then other signs pop up about different events. And I mean, is that our crew that goes out and
On county roads where those signs create a distraction or block the sight distance or distract from other signage, we remove those and bring them back to our office. Candidates or issue whatever the party is for the sign can come to our office and pick those back up.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's roundabouts have created a new target-rich environment for political signs. So people put those in the middle of roundabouts, and we have strict instruction not to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a difficult thing, because whoever's sign we take down thinks that we're targeting them in favor of someone who they'll drive by and see another sign somewhere else. And frankly, we can't devote somebody all day, every day to be driving around the county looking for signs. So as we see them, we remove them.
And the other side of that is somebody who's trying to do it the right way.
Yes.
They see the competitor and they feel
Yeah.
like they're being treated unfairly when
That's
they're trying to follow.
yeah,
the rules.
exactly. This year, we had a responsible candidate called and said, you know, I haven't put any signs in roundabouts, but my candidate's got signs in these locations, and if you're not gonna take theirs out, I'm gonna put mine out there beside him. And so we went out and took those signs down, and of course, then we got the criticism of,
Right.
you're taking down
Yes.
signs for political, for political partisan purposes. And the reality is, if they create a problem for the traffic, or for traffic operations, or for safety, we remove them.
I think the bigger problem is that person has to get out, go to the middle,
Yeah,
and
it's-
put them out
Yeah,
there.
we don't want them out there walking across the middle of a roundabout. So, I would say that 80 to 90% of the signs that get placed in our road right away, we don't touch. But those that are a problem, we do. And it's happening at a time interval that we can't keep up with.
Sure, sure.
As we
So
see.
mainly you're
Thank
enforcing it more in the roundabouts and other
Yes, we
areas,
are.
basically. Because we get calls too, asking us, I just refer them to your office, so.
That's fine, that's what you should do, so yeah, we're
Yeah.
fine with that, that's where it belongs.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
important, just not to belabor the point, but also important to note, in most of our roads, the road right-of-way is an easement, and people own to the center of the road. And so, we don't have exclusive jurisdiction over everything that happens in that road right-of-way. We have an easement to use it for
I
roadway
see.
purposes. So if it interferes with our use for a roadway purpose, we'll remove it. But otherwise, the people putting signs out in the right-of-way on their property, if they don't create a problem for us, they're well within their rights to do that. So, I know there are some townships that remove them from a zoning perspective. We don't touch that.
I get asked this question all the time. How many roundabouts do we have in the county? I think the number was around 25. Where's that today?
Boy, I'd have to think about that for a second, Commissioner. We probably have somewhere on that order. I may have to get back to you on that. It's
Well,
very lot.
I get asked. I'm not sure about the other
Yeah.
commissioners. And
I do not know, as we've tried to count those, then we say, okay, do we count the ones in the city, and there are a couple that are kind of quasi-public-private locations, and do you count those? And so it's not clear, but it's well over 20, I'm sure of that, yeah.
Well, over how many?
Over 20.
20, yes.
And frankly, that will continue to grow. And it won't be it's not just a Delaware County phenomenon, it's a transportation industry.
well, Delaware
trend.
City has a number of them as well. Right?
Yes. Dublin does.
Yes. Yeah, oh boy. Dublin has some very challenging ones, I must say.
They have one
They
in particular that,
really-
Yeah,
whenever roundabouts are brought up, they'd always name that one. And
Oh, my gosh.
I understand.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Gee, oh my gosh, yeah. Very, well, anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So I want to touch on some of the fleet purchases we'd like to make next year. We'd like to replace some of our older pickup trucks. We do need to replace a dump truck. This will be a tandem axle dump truck. When you buy dump trucks, you don't necessarily buy the whole truck already outfitted. You have to kind of assemble it and build it. You buy the chassis, and then you send it to a fabricator who puts on the dump body, the hydraulics, and all the attachments that go with using it the way we use it for salt or snow and ice control. And so that adds up to a pretty big number. A fully outfitted truck is somewhere in the $300,000 figure. So.
The ones that are replacing, I assume you then turn around, because in this environment today, they probably have a value. We turn around and sell those.
They do. I mean, we send those to auction. I think we We keep about I want to say 4 dump trucks in reserve for when, if we have a truck break down or in the middle of a storm, we can go grab one of the older trucks. But yeah, we don't want to keep old trucks just for the sake of having them.
A 14-year-old truck that has been hauling salt around
Oh, gee.
for that period of time, they're pretty well used. There's still some value. I don't mean to diminish
Yeah.
that, but it's not. They're pretty well depreciated.
Have value to somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you asked about that in the past, too.
I think
I
Gary
may
wants-
have,
You may want- are
just to
you-
remind.
I do remember.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just a subtle reminder.
Oh, yeah.
You looking for a good used dump truck?
Yeah, I know. That, we discussed that too before. He seems to like these really old.
Yeah. Wants to make sure they're put to good use.
As he should. As he should.
We have a fleet of tractors to mow our roadsides. Again, most of the contract, the mowing is done by contract, but again, for the roughly 30% of our mileage that remains, we need to be, those tractors wear out pretty quickly when you're running them on roadsides. It's a little different than in a yard. Roadsides are not even, or they're bumpy, and those tractors get torn up pretty quickly. The mowers wear out, and even with maintenance, so we do need to replace those on a regular schedule. We would like to buy a mini excavator, basically to replace backhoes in the construction world. Backhoes, you know, with the loader on the front and the hoe attachment on the back, those were kind of the standard. Nowadays, the small excavators, the mini excavators as they're called, are a little bit more practical. They're dedicated, they're better at doing what you need them to do. They come with rubber tracks so you can operate them on pavement without tearing up the asphalt. And so we would like to basically replace an old backhoe with a mini excavator. And then we will have to buy some equipment for the Bixby campus for our shops. These are column lifts, and then we'll need 2 gantry cranes for our shop. So we'll outfit the shop once we get moved in. And then some other minor equipment that we'll need to buy throughout the year.
Did the school leave the lifts that were there, or did they take it with them? Or-
They took the lifts, but we'll have plenty of room. I can't, Chris is aware of this, when our shop staff and our mechanics go over there, their eyes get big and like, man, the facility we're in right now is not great for what we do. We have 2 garage bays. The space we'll be moving into has a lot more space. It's going to be much more suitable for the type of maintenance we do. Anything to add there, Chris?
No, it's just, the 2 bays that we have are really tight. If you have a vehicle that's got any kind of major overhaul going on or major repair that has them tearing things down, it needs to sit there for a week or 2. If we really only have 1 bay, then to jockey all the different just routine maintenance coming through. And if you have two pieces of equipment you need to work on, we're just stuck. So.
I had occasion to walk through there last week. I mentioned in Monday's meeting, it's impressive how much progress has been made out there.
Yes, it is.
Since you took a sledgehammer to the wall, lots happened.
as did you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all the really in the weeds stuff I have for you. We'd like to run through some of our projects, show you some pictures, and give you an idea of what we have coming up in terms of contracts and projects. I guess I do have a couple more tables to show you, but this is just, I definitely won't go line by line through this, but this is just a list of the ongoing engineering contracts we have. You can see how much we have under design currently. And then here's a list of our 2023 construction projects. And I'll talk through some of these in more detail in just a second. So give you just a minute to look at that. two, these are not really county projects, but these are projects that we'll be working on behalf of townships. Bill Canyon Road, we've been working with Orange Township for some time on that, and then Brawl Miller Road at Stockdale Farms. So we'll be assisting on a small road realignment there. So I've got a slide on the Bill Canyon. I'll show you in just a minute. Wanted to touch on grants. This is an important one we want to bring to your attention. For several years now, we have, well, for a long time, we have matched the local share for state-funded projects. For OPWC projects, when townships apply, we would traditionally match their contributions. We do that at a higher level now. We have for the last several years. We basically match at $3 for every dollar they put into the project. And that's open to all the cities and basically the cities with the majority of their population in the county. We don't match Columbus projects, we don't match Westerville projects, but we do City of Delaware, Sunbury, Galena, Ashley. So
I have a question. Since I live in the area, at Pyatt and Brawmiller, and that's either a city or a township, I'm guessing, that's going to be a dangerous intersection there as they build those houses there along the river. Do you know what I'm talking about? As Brawmiller dead ends into the river.
oh yeah, Pollock.
Yes. Pollock, I said Pyatt.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for the correction.
Yes.
I understand why you were confused. That's dangerous now with the vegetation and stuff. That's going to be
Sight
worse.
distance is not good.
Those houses get occupied and
Yeah.
traffic's going to pick up. Is that a township project or is that a city project or you don't know?
Yeah, that would definitely be a township project. That section of Brawl Miller Road, basically going from Pollock up the hill, is still in the unincorporated area. I can't remember exactly.
I don't know how far the annexation goes on
Well,
Pollock.
the traffic's been
so-
created by the city, but I'm assuming
yeah.
that won't make any difference to the city.
Right.
No.
But my observation driving that area every day basically is it's going to be, and the houses are going up pretty fast through there.
Yes.
Amazing how
They are.
quickly they're going up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, just an observation.
So the other item we have on here is the annual pledge to the TID. Chris, I'll let you chime in, but we are asking your board to consider increasing that up to $1 million a year. Currently, for the last several years, has been $400,000 per year. The TID is in a position where, I think we're able to assist on some projects. The county obviously has needs, but so do townships, so do the cities. And the TID is in a unique position of being able to facilitate some of those projects. And so I think increasing that share is probably a good thing for the county overall. Chris, anything you want to add to
Yeah,
that?
and it's not that we're taking that 100,000 and automatically giving it to other jurisdictions through the TID. There's certainly the opportunity for that, but there's also the opportunity we could do that we could use that on our own projects that are going through the TID. It really, in my mind, it's the biggest positive factor or positive point behind increasing that is the TID can do some things faster than we can all do, and so having a bigger pot of money there to say, okay, this project popped up out of nowhere, whether it's our project or someone else's, a township project, for instance, because of some development, we could probably make something happen within a year, where going through the conventional contracting process and the QBS consultant selection process for the county would take us much more time. And so I think this would just increase our ability to be more flexible and moving at the speed of change that happens
sounds
around
great.
us all the time.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, we're not talking about asking you for the non-road and bridge general fund money to move in here to the TID. We're really talking about money that's already earmarked for transportation that we'd be spending through our office conventionally, and now spending $600,000 more of that through the TID. Still
Basically more
transportation.
flexibility, faster, and more efficient use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think, and it gives us, but we can do partnership, joint projects with other entities easier through the TID than we can through normal means.
A question regarding Bixby, and it's already come up with, you mentioned the facilities, but with, the big trucks and everything, are they presently, you can't fit everything in your present?
From a maintenance
Place from
standpoint,
maintenance,
yeah, from
yeah.
a maintenance standpoint, we have, we can fit basically 2 trucks in for work at one time.
Okay,
And then it's not unheard of in the winter time when things break down more, that
Mhm.
we'll have, we'll be working outside on vehicles either in our vehicle storage building or even in the elements, to try to keep things going. And so when Rob says that our employees get a big smile and get bright-eyed about seeing the facilities that are there, their life's gonna be better, and I think
that's
the work
great.
that we do will.
And that was areas
That's
for
great.
teaching for the school, and
Yeah,
I haven't been to the old location, but new location is pretty good size.
yeah.
what do you see then comparing efficiencies with what you have now and what you will have in Bixby?
Are you talking about just on the maintenance side or on
Well,
or in
no,
general?
beyond
So-
maintenance.
Yeah, so, I think we've highlighted some of the maintenance stuff, but in terms of the way our staff, operates and interacts with each other, will be much better.
Oh, good.
The offices we're in now are on 2 floors, and the offices are chopped up into kind of old
Just different rooms.
walls and, yeah.
Rooms,
so-
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a maze to find your way around. There's not a lot of, we have to work to collaborate, it's like everybody meet in this room, instead of talking to people in the next cubicle over. So and we're departmentalized internally, and so those departments are kind of scattered around in different pods within our building. If you've seen the floor plan of how we'll be laid out, it's much more open concept.
Good.
And departments within our organization that work with each other will be better co-located. So that's one level in terms of how we interact with each other, I think will be so much better. But then how we interact with other county agencies. We're in the same building with the sewer district and the building safety operations right now, but still have to work through this maze to get there.
Oh, that's great.
We'll be co-located with them, along with the Regional Planning Commission and the Soil and Water Conservation District. So that's good for us. I think it's also probably most important in all that is good for our customers. So people that come to our office looking for something, our receptionist is not telling them, no, you need to go across town to the Regional Planning Commission. It's now just walk down this hall to your left, and they can help you there. And there are a lot of people that come to our office, want to talk to us, but they end up needing to talk to Tiffany Mag's people or someone at the building department. And so we can do that and give them directions on how to find their way there. But this will be a lot better for basically all the people that are in kind of the
Yes.
common business of the county,
Yeah.
to be at the same place, and the people that are our customers will be better served by that.
Right,
That's the
right.
biggest thing.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's exactly what I was wondering. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, I guess, lastly, I wanted to talk about some of the projects that we have planned. Again, this is not a complete list of everything we're doing. Kind of had to draw a cut line somewhere. And so, these are the projects I want to we want to run through and talk about and present to you. Speaking of Bixby, we have the first phase or the first part of phase 1 is complete. That roundabout at 521, you can see in the picture, is open. That was completed in October, and that road is now open and runs down to Bowtown Road, and so the access to the campus is available now. And so when we move in next summer, that will be very, very useful, especially for our fleet equipment, but also the sheriff will have another entrance to their lot. And then it just makes circulation on the campus so much better. The next phase, what we're calling phase 1B, would be the part from Bowtown Road south to 36, and that's what's shown in the graphic there. You're aware we've been planning that. There's been discussion with the city to assist on some of the right-of-way acquisition for the portion that's in the city, and so our plan is to get that bid over this winter and then under construction by next summer. Moving on to Orange Road, this is a big project, very impactful for the residents of Orange Township and southern Delaware County. This is essentially what we're planning. Currently, 2-lane at-grade crossing would be expanded to a 4-lane underpass, shown on the right. There's a picture of what that will look like. The train will stay on the bridge. But it's a huge upgrade compared to what's there now. Really provides for the you heard or you've been hearing us talk about kind of the east-west movement through Delaware counties for years and years. We were focused on north to south because that's primarily the commuting pattern for our residents. That will change, especially with Intel. You know, the population center from kind of Delaware south will need to go east, but not just people working there. It's also the vendors and suppliers working with Intel will need to get to and from going east to west. We have, fortunately or unfortunately, we have a railroad cutting right through the middle of our county, Norfolk Southern and CSX, that really makes it currently difficult. Whenever there's a train, you know, we get a lot of complaints about trains parked at the crossings, Peach Blow Road, Shanahan Road. These are the great separations. I got 2 more here, but these are can't overstate the importance of these, kind of restoring full access across that railroad. So this is a slide just kind of showing the funding picture for that project. We've got a lot more work to do, more discussions that need to take place with Orange Township. We've had some of those discussions already, but this gives you an idea where things stand now. We have a funding commitment from Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission for about $7 million, $25 million. Unfortunately, that's gone up just due to inflation over the last year. That still leaves us a balance of about $18 million. The good news is there are some other federal programs that can help on this project. These basically involve grant applications directly to the federal or to the US DOT. There are basically 3 programs that could possibly assist on this project. ODOT also has funding that they could assist with. And then also the TIFs in the area, Slate Ridge, Orange Road, Creekside, this project would be eligible for any of those. And then I guess to round that out, township and county funds as needed. But our goal would be to try to fund this thing entirely with federal funds and TIF funding. The federal funds won't pay for all of it. They could pay up to 80% of it, but hopefully the TIFs would cover the remaining balance. So. Again, more work to do. Open to any questions or comments on that. Green Meadows Drive extension. We will need to ask your board to convene on a hearing on this project. As you may recall, there's a there was a petition filed for a special assessment involving this project. And so your board will need to reconvene probably at some point this winter to consider that. But we have advanced design. The design is nearly complete, and our goal would be to start construction next spring and basically fund this project through a combination of the Slate Ridge TIF and that special assessment that would go on the new single-family residential lots or the condominium lots that will be. Can you see that mouse pointer? This is the Kerbler Tract Slate Ridge Residential. There's about, between this parcel and over in this area, there's about 220 units that will go in. As part of the development agreement for Home Road, Mr. Kerbler already agreed to the levy of that assessment on his single-family lots to help pay for both Home Road and Green Meadows Drive.
You said single family, what, the condos as well, or?
I say single family, those will be freestanding units. I believe they're currently envisioned as a condominium type of structure, but they look like freestanding single
So
family
that they're
houses.
included is my question.
Yes, they are included, yes, yes. And then there's another pocket of potential residential that I believe is going through Orange Township zoning at the moment in this area that we've been working with the developer to add that to the special assessment. So more to come on that in the next couple of months. North Road Extension, here's another one. We'll have to have some discussion very soon on this, but this project dates back several years when this is the Shale Meadows Elementary School that was built, gosh, it's all running together, 2 years ago, last year, I don't even know. I think it opened last
Yeah, I think it's 2 years.
August of '21. We built phase 1, which is this portion of North Road. There's also a lot of residential development in this area. This tract kind of south or west and south of the elementary school is a DRK owned or controlled property, and that extends all the way down to Shanahan Road. I believe that's called Berlin Meadows. And then on the east side, this is all Evans Farm over here. So we already have an agreement with DRK involving their contribution to this project. We need that same agreement with Evans Farm, and so we'll be talking to you more shortly about that. But we would like to go to construction next year and have that complete by October of next year. Home Road Extension, we plan on starting the first part of the last phase, if that makes sense. Next summer, this would involve a roundabout at Lewis Center Road, just east of the village. This 11-acre property, the county purchased from the Zarbaugh family years ago, and so we will finally be making use of that. And so we hope to start construction probably late next summer, and that project may go into the spring of 2024. The good news is we will be building a temporary runaround or temporary road around the roundabout during construction, and so we can maintain traffic on Lewis Center Road while we build the roundabout itself. And so that closing Lewis Center Road is a big issue because it's one of the few good east-west connections in that area, and we always hear about it when it's closed.
What about to the north there, Rob?
Yeah, to the north, you can see we'll basically be tying into the portion of Pirate Road that's already built, has been built by Evans Farm, and so that will run part of the way up into the development. There is a section farther north that will connect on up to Shanahan Road that we may have talked recently about, but there's an understanding we have with Evans Farm that will be completed within probably the next 2 years. So that connection will fully extend up to the current limit of Pirate Road. Here's the other part of that last phase of Home Road. We have an estimated cost of about $17 million for this phase. That involves the railroad overpass. We've been working with the railroads to basically secure an agreement for that. I know Eric has been doing some of that work recently, and so I think we're inching ahead with
Oh,
that.
good.
Working with railroads is never a very quick or easy thing, but ultimately this is a really, really good thing for the area, having this extra connection. So, anything to add? I'm doing a lot of talking.
No,
here,
you're
Chris.
doing good.
So you're looking at 25, 26 construction?
Yes, we are.
Still,
Yes. So Africa Road at Cheshire Road, we are looking at a roundabout here. This basically what we have, what we think will work best is kind of a peanut-shaped roundabout here, and that's largely due to the constraints we have on the northwest and southeast corners. The northwest is a pump station, and then the southeast corner is the Cheshire Market. We have talked to the owners of Cheshire Market, so they're aware of this. But we would like to move ahead with this, planning on construction in 2025. As that area continues to grow, that we've noticed that the backups in the afternoon, particularly at this intersection, are getting longer and longer. And that's not going to, that will only get worse as Berlin Township continues to grow. Speaking of Berlin Township, we have another project on Berlin Station Road. This is near the new high school, kind of upgrading that current section of Berlin Station Road, getting a full modern 2-lane section in certain parts, and then a 3-lane section to the west of the high school, where to the north of the high school will be about M.I. Holmes is developing that. This is going to be called Berlin Farm. M.I. Holmes is currently building in this area. That includes 91 lots. So they have about another 400 coming to the north of the high school. And so that will involve an entrance over here, which we've agreed to work with M.I. Holmes on basically providing for that widening, and then they'll offset the cost of that with a contribution, as well as we haven't finalized it, but a special assessment on those new lots to help offset both the cost of this project as well as a future northward extension of Pyatt Road. I mentioned Bale Canyon earlier. Again, this is a township project, but we are, it's a good bit of effort from our staff and our office. The first phase of that will be under construction next year. You can see where that is. It goes from Orange Road at the north, under the I-71 to basically this point that's maybe a half mile south of Orange Road. That section's in really, really bad shape. The road itself is actually failing, and there's a slide starting on the east side of the road, and so it's coming at a good time. But that will basically modernize that section, make it safe for the amount of traffic using that road. And that's going to be funded through a combination of the township as well as a grant from the TID and OPWC. So that's all the detailed projects we have for you, but just in summary, looking ahead, kind of the good things and the challenges we have ahead of us. The great news is our roads are in really, really good shape, and that's largely due to the investment that and the foresight of your board and previous boards has made, has allowed us to make in our pavements. As you go around the county, there aren't very many potholes on our road, or on our county roads. Pavements are in great shape. We did a lot of base stabilization years ago, and we've been able to basically shift over to a preservation program where we're simply maintaining what we've got. We don't have to spend nearly as much money as we used to on our pavements. So we're probably ahead of most other counties in the state in terms of the condition of our infrastructure. Also, our bridges are in great shape. When Chris started as county engineer, over a third of our inventory, our bridge inventory was deficient. I think it was something around 38%. Now that's down to a few percent. We've got a handful of bridges that are are probably too narrow. They're narrower than they should be, but none that are really structurally bad. They're all safe to drive on. We've replaced or built somewhere on the order of 250 bridges over the last 20 years, 15 years, I guess 20. But yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and we, so in terms of condition, we're in great shape, but that just highlights the fact that so much of our program will need to be in the safety upgrades and the expansion of our roads for capacity and traffic flow. One of the challenges we have, showed it earlier, we just don't have much growth in our operating and maintenance funds, and that's due to the relatively stagnant gas tax. Gas tax may have already peaked, or may peak very shortly and start to trend downward as more electric vehicles come online. Vehicle registrations, those will continue to grow. That's good news. As our population grows, there's more registered vehicles in the county, but it's not at a really significant rate, maybe 2% per year. And so, circling back to one of the first things we talked about, kind of an unbalanced budget we've had for the last 6 or 7 years, where we've shifted capital expenses into motor and gas. We just can't continue that because we're reaching the point where our fund balance, we need to start leveling that off. So.
I'd add one more thing about the gas tax portion of our revenue. You recall 4 years ago, there was a state gas tax increase. And based on our price for asphalt last year, which was up 20%?
I think it was 30%.
30% higher than the previous year in 1 year. We basically have lost everything that we gained from the gas tax 4 years ago to inflation, and it just in the last 4 years. So
Is there any legislative initiative to address the electric vehicle component of the gas tax?
yeah, there's quite a boxing match over that of people that are calling for a reduction in the $200 fee for an electric vehicle.
The
Because
$200 is nominal,
Yeah,
and that's ridiculous. They use
Yeah.
the roads, and they need to be paying their fair share.
I agree. So when the last gas tax increase happened 4 years ago, they levied an acknowledgement that that electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles wouldn't be paying their fair share of what amounts to a user fee on our roadways. So they set up a $200 fee for an all-electric vehicle and a $100 fee for a hybrid vehicle. And there are, I think each of the last 2 legislative sessions have been bills introduced to reduce that's unfair in some way.
Are our legislatures, where do they stand on the issue?
I don't think any of them have sympathized with that position. But I bring it up because there are those that are saying, no, just the opposite, it needs to be increased. And so there is a political battle over that issue. It certainly isn't the most important thing going on at the State House, but it's an issue.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then, in conclusion, I guess we're all anxiously awaiting to see what will happen as Intel moves into the area. What does that do to Delaware County? For probably the last 15 years at least, we've focused the majority of our infrastructure projects in kind of the south central part of the county that has grown. Orange Township, Genoa, Liberty, Concord, in that area, more recently Berlin and Berkshire. As we see some of that activity happening in the eastern half of the county, Chris and I have remarked we didn't really have any dots on our project map in Harlem or Trenton Township up until about 6 months ago. Intel came as news to a lot of us, and that we've had to shift our thinking and focus some effort on that part of the county. So we'll see what happens.
I think that the biggest question for us, we can try to plan for the low-hanging fruit to say, okay, any increase in traffic volume in these areas, we need to address these roads. But what we don't know is the land use. We don't know whether it's going to be residential. We don't know whether There are gonna be zoning changes to more intensive use, to commercial, industrial applications. Those kind of projects could again turn us, would need to pivot quickly to address those. We're addressing it at some level of assumption in growth and again, just looking at the existing system. But I think we also acknowledge that could all change and pivot on a dime if a big announcement comes about a large development. So we also don't know about whether there'll be annexation in those areas, or whether that development will continue to happen in an unincorporated area. And so we certainly, I don't think it's responsible for us to get too far ahead of ourselves and make improvements in areas that are going to turn around and annex. That the land use isn't there to support that under the county's jurisdiction, then making those improvements is it's questionable. So from the county standpoint, understanding we serve all the public within our county, but we have jurisdictional issues about what we're responsible for and where our dollars get spent. And so I think we have to be aware of all of that. And there's a lot more information that we don't have than what we do have.
Yeah, as I mentioned before we started the hearing, Harlem Township is working, and they do have a strategic planning committee that is studying land use, zoning, roads, water, sewer, everything. They're moving along, but they aren't close to having anything finalized.
Yeah. Well, if you become aware in any of those discussions of a role that we can play, or if it's time for us to get involved at a greater level, let us know that.
Has that group reached out to you that's doing
I've
this
met
stuff?
with that strategic planning group. It's probably been a couple months ago now. And at that time it was Bob Singer and their consultant. I understand Bob's not chairing that effort now, so I haven't met with them since that change.
Yeah. And they're meeting, I mean, they're going through the process. They're meeting with the landowners and the various interested parties, and one of the trustees is now heading up that committee. So they're moving along, but it's a tedious process, an important process.
Absolutely.
Sure, many challenges, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And you have your group with ODOT too, I know that you're in close touch with on Intel in particular. And so we're planning as much as we can at this point. And so more information to come. Too.
Yep.
Any questions? Either of you
Thank you,
have?
Rob and Chris. Great
It's a
work
great-
as always.
Thank you.
Great presentation, thank you.
I guess just in closing, any short updates on the two interchanges, or?
So the 3671 interchange, you're aware the TID has that under final design contract. We're about 30 to 40% of the way through the final design. There was a recent submittal to ODOT for their plan reviewers to take a look at. So that's charging ahead. We're making good progress with that. As it stands now, I think we're looking at wrapping up design towards the end of next year. There will need to be some land to be purchased. We've been talking with ODOT about kind of how that will happen, who's going to take the lead on that. I think as it stands now, ODOT will probably take the lead on acquisition of that right of way. I think there's a reasonable likelihood we'll be in a position to start construction in 2025. It's a good 12 to 18 month project to get that first phase open. Involves the bridge over the freeway, obviously, and the ramps, which take some time. But yeah, we're inching closer. Yeah, for sure. Big Walnut interchange. We're basically plugging away on the analysis, the traffic analysis that you probably read about in the newspaper a month or so ago. That is limited to a traffic analysis. It's kind of the first step in determining whether that project again, is even technically feasible. If we can determine that if the metrics that ODOT will let us look at show that there's a net benefit to the traffic flow in the area, we can then advance into more detailed studies involving environmental and obviously addressing some of the concerns we've heard about from the public. But it's a slow process, there's no question. We've spent a lot of time up till now, and we'll continue to spend some more time. But there's some daylight ahead of us, thanks to some changes in the way that ODOT is looking at new interchanges, some of the metrics they allow us to look at versus the way, kind of the traditional way that new interchanges were viewed, so.
We heard ODOT say in a meeting this week that they're advocate for the project and a proponent of the project. So
Yep.
it was good to hear him say that in that setting. So.
Anything else? Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Always thorough, thank you guys.
Yes.
We appreciate all your support again.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, so we will come back.
Thank you.